December 2019, Dinner with the Devs. I'm here with some of the directors for the Until You Fall game, their virtual reality sword fighting game. We are going to entertain a lot of questions, so feel free to add them into the live chat, or if you are in our Discord and asking questions, make sure that our moderators see your questions so we can get them recorded as well. And so we are thinking about truncating this stream a little bit because of the weather conditions, but we'll keep an eye on it. If the roads are clear, then we might try to extend just a little bit, because we have a lot of questions rolling in and we want to try to get to all of them, or at least as many as we can. Well, make sure that you also subscribe to our channel. This will be recorded, so if you have to jump off and jump back in, you can see all the cool things that our team has talked about. And so, let's get started. We'll get started with some introductions, and then we'll jump right in.
Sure. I'm Dave Bennett. I am the project director of Until You Fall.
Hey y'all, it's Kwame Bab. I am the VFX artist on Until You Fall.
Hi, Justin DeVore. I'm the art director.
Cool. Dwayne on the marketing team, and our live chat moderator is our marketing coordinator, Allie. And so she'll be making sure that the chat stays civil in there. all you crazy guys and gals. Okay. So let's get started. So we're talking a little bit of everything about the game since it's released in August. I'd like to share some behind the scenes battle stories of all of our adventures around the country, showing the game at PAX West in Seattle's first time in a PAX West event, so that was super cool. And then we went to GDEX, won some awards there. That was awesome. DreamHack Atlanta was super interesting, so we'll dive into that as well. And but what I'd like to start with is some of your questions. So. The names are a lot of the names from our Discord followers. So if you haven't joined our Discord yet, please do so. There are a lot of cool things in there. We're just talking about. There's some fan fiction in the Off Topic channel, and we're big fans of it. So thank you. I think it was Dr. Prospector.
Yep.
Who did that. So thank you, Doc, for putting that in there. And speaking of, we'll answer one of their questions. He said, I once heard a mention of campaigns. Are there plans for additional areas to discover? If so, is there a roadmap or ballpark as to where our adventures will eventually be taking us? So, Dave, we could start with you, and people can add on.
So, I mean, the campaign that's currently in the game, kind of the main campaign, is we're calling it the outskirts, basically the Shattered Woods, is I believe the player-facing name. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that this is in the outskirts of the city, nation, state, Rokar. My hope was that eventually, at some point, we could go into the city itself and figure out what's going on, because we've made a lot of allusions to this horrible event called the Calamity that happened at some point in the distant past. And so, should we get to the point where we have the time and budget to do it, we could actually go into those locations and find out what's going on and hopefully, fix it.
Mm-hmm. We talked about all sorts of places.
Yeah, no, it's nuts. I mean, we talked about in a city,
underground, catacombs, destroyed laboratory, magic. I mean, we talked about all sorts of stuff.
Some sort of weird plane of magic. Maybe you go into the Aether. I don't know.
Yeah.
So again, there's fertile ground for locations to go, but right now we have nothing officially planned for other locations just yet. Right now it's mostly focused on these woods and these outskirts of Rokar.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I guess this goes along with it. Monogon asks, will there be some kind of exploration in the future, or not yet decided or refused? So I guess early on, people were wondering if this was going to be some type of world exploration. Mm-hmm. And I guess what I would like to hear from you, why did you choose to have the game be more driven to combat versus some type of exploration?
Sure. I mean, a lot of the reasoning why is that I mean, we just needed to keep the scope manageable. There's a lot of cool things we could have done, but really we wanted to make sure that what we could do within the budget and time that we had, we did it great. And so it was the kind of thing, it was like, yeah, we could have a bunch of half-baked interactions where you're exploring and picking stuff up and trying to explore these environments, but we didn't necessarily have time to make environments that were worth exploring. We didn't have time to make the interactions of picking up and gathering stuff feel good or give you enough of a reason to do those things. Right. And so really we want to just double down on the combat. I mean, we were just talking about this when we were eating food, but we used to have stuff like telekinesis where you'd be able to in the olden days. In the olden days, it was kind of like, weapons were breakable, and you needed to go explore the environment and gather new weapons, and it was the constant problem of, I'm either dropping my weapon or the weapon's over there and I need to get to it and I don't want to walk over there. Yeah. And so we actually had telekinesis that you could actually grab the sword with. Mm-hmm. And that sort of helped the problem, but you could still drop the sword.
Thank you, I expected to die.
Yes, thank you, I expected to die. The thing that invented telekinesis. Yes.
And, Charles Xavier, I guess.
Yeah, well, yeah, of course.
But yeah, I think that, I think you nailed it in that. We wanted to create something that was that we could really iterate on tightly, that was concise, so that for the players that were going to come in, we knew obviously we were going into early access, we wanted to be able to give you guys something that you could kind of get, you could grok quickly. It was not something that was so expansive that you're like, what is this? And the minute we felt that, we were like, whoa, run, let's
It also had to do with when we started to narrow down, okay, no really, we've been prototyping a lot of stuff for a long time.
What's fun?
What are our pillars, right?
Sure.
And the pillars of you come into this game and are already nearly godlike in your abilities, really didn't connect successfully with a lot of those actions that are a little more exploratory, right? It wasn't necessarily fast-paced enough. The telekinesis stuff and being able to drop weapons or have them break just didn't lend itself to making you feel like you were powerful.
Yeah, no, it actually
it actually made you feel the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. It's kind of this weird, aimless, slow, almost kind of pondering. Okay, I guess I gotta find a sword. Oops, I dropped my sword. Bend over, pick up the sword. I feel like Mr. Magoo. This is great.
Yeah. And the whole time the Runesmith is like, "You are the champion. Yeah. You did. Whoops. You're the champion.
You're the best. Yeah. Trust me, you're really cool.
Just stop dropping your sword now.
I swear. Yeah, I swear. Yeah, you gotta believe me.
We had the internal phrase, don't drop the sword.
Yeah.
It was kind of became our tagline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not just in that aspect of it, but all the aspects of does this feature make you feel powerful and cool and stylish?
Right. Yeah.
Or does it leave you open for feeling goofy or inadequate?
Yeah, it really was I think no matter what we do, you can always find a way to make yourself feel goofy and do goofy stuff.
Right.
But you have to work for it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. The default and kind of baseline actions that you take make you feel cool, and so that's yes, that's great, and then they shouldn't be a suite of abilities that you have that just kind of make you feel dumb and silly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So along with that, speaking of design constraints, John Cunningham from YouTube, the live chat says, are you planning any multiplayer aspects? Would be cool to see some impact from other players, even if it's just cosmetic, or a shadow of another player to time against, etc., some type of community within the game. So you can kind of entertain that one.
Yeah, I mean, I know something that I'm eager for, and again, it's not a promise or anything that we can do it just yet, but we want to have some sort of leaderboards, because I think some sort of speed runs, or just, we're doing a great job on the Discord of fostering that sense of community and having those challenges, but anyway, we can start bringing more of that into the game itself, so that people don't have to go to extra places to start finding that stuff.
Yeah.
Would be ideal. But there's that in terms of live co-op. That would be the dream of kicking in the door with your friend and going through Rokar and just killing husks. That'd be awesome. We're totally not there in any sense yet. But
that was another one where we had to make a decision. We were poking at that early on, and we need to make a decision about this particular product.
Yeah.
But the way that we've always looked at this IP is, this is an IP that can potentially grow. We're creating a universe here, and it is something that could potentially expand into multiple games of different genres and things like that, right? So
Yeah.
if we're building enough story here and enough of a world, it could potentially, with expanded budget, support that exploration game sometime, or support that multiplayer version.
Yeah. No, I think it's so much of this release has been about getting kind of the fundamentals right.
Yeah.
Of like, what is the core until you fall experience? What is the combat? And now once we feel like we're getting a pretty good handle on that, it's like, okay, how else does it grow? Where does it go from here?
I know it's like it's certainly kind of on the fringe of what we would consider like multiplayer, but the stuff that we've been putting in as far as like, first of all, there's the community that we've built and you guys all talking and playing with each other kind of like, and doing the challenges and then adding the timer, like those are things that I know, sound kind of basic, but they're in there to make sure that everyone can kind of have a reference point for how other people played. I definitely hear what was it John Cunningham is saying. I hear what you're saying, John, because it's like, I mean, we've played Dark Souls, we both played Bloodborne. We like seeing the little phantoms on the ground,
see the blood splatter,
and then see what the phantom does and stuff, or like playing a racing game and seeing the ghost car, like that kind of stuff is really awesome. But yeah, we have no idea. But yeah, I think that feeling feels right. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's the kind of thing too where so much of the game is also kind of about this feeling of isolation.
Yeah.
So like,
good point.
And so it's like can we preserve that? But like,
at
the same time, it's like, obviously we want to do stuff that brings people together.
It's fun.
Like I want to like talk to Justin about like, oh, this is my build. This is what I did. Look how good I did.
Yeah.
What build are you playing? And then we can like compare and contrast.
Yeah.
And then again, just other things to kind of test each other against. Yeah. Like there's always that kind of sense of competition and camaraderie that. I don't know. We definitely want to foster.
Yeah, we have a great the strategies channel. There's so much good conversation that happens in there about how to deal with
just certain enemies,
and what weapons to use and what combinations to use. Like it's already there, So yeah.
And it changes with every balance update.
Yeah,
sure does. Shardstorm.
Yeah, that's right.
Love Shardstorm.
It got even better, dude. It's so good now.
Yeah, because even I forget who it was. Was it Croesus in it?
Yeah.
Oh man, with that Shardstorm update, that's top tier.
Top tier. That's a must pick.
Top tier. You know what's up, Croesus.
Speaking of, Croesus, where are you? Oh, okay. So I guess we can move on a little bit about weapons.
Sure.
Croesus asks, Aether bow, when?
To the point, straight to the point.
Straight to the point. I love it. I want it. I think the biggest reason we shied away from, really the reason we shied away from ranged weapons and even shields was they interrupted the kind of gameplay we wanted you to have of getting your face up in there and just wailing on enemies. I think now that we have a better handle on what that combat is like, what that in the moment-to-moment melee combat's like, we can start finding ways to kind of tweak that and be like, oh, okay, now I have the offhand pistol that every once in a while I can shoot.
Yep.
Or I have the Aether bow that I need to use both hands to do something with. Like, I think there are ways to do it. They're just problems that take time to solve without ruining the kind of experience we've already built up.
Yep.
Because, man, I do want to shoot Aether arrows.
Yeah, I think we're in a good spot now. Like, now we have so many people playing, we have the enemies, we have the campaign set up the way it is. Like, we can kind of assess, we know how the game feels now. Like, back when we were doing a lot of that exploration, we were kind of like, this kind of feels right. But, like, we didn't really get there. Like, now we've got to the place where we're like, oh, yes, this feels right.
Yeah, there's a base context to be able to expand out from now.
Right.
Yeah, and I think
we're just getting there.
And we're getting the great feedback from people actually playing the game.
Right.
It's one thing, like, we're doing play testing, we're getting outside people to play test the game, but now that we're on early access, we've been on early access for almost, 4 months.
Right.
And we've been getting a lot of great feedback and watching videos people playing the game, seeing where people are getting hung up, what is still not making sense, what's not quite clicking. Like, we can start fixing those areas, but we at least have enough of the core kind of set up that we can now, really tweak it and go out from there.
Yep. We've absolutely thought about projectiles.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, like they throw them at you, so why can't you throw them at them? Yep. I mean, you have Soulburn, so that's the one.
Soulburn.
That's our one.
Shardstorm.
Yeah, you have Soulburn and Shardstorm. Like, we wanted to give
right.
you some form of ranged attack, but again, it's kind of like the thing of like, if this is a melee first game.
Melee first, yeah.
Yeah, I think the big ones that we hear are some sort of ranged weapon.
Yeah.
Other than just the super that you shoot.
Shields.
Shields. Yeah.
Long weapons like
Yeah.
spears.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And related to that, two-handed
two-handed
weapons.
weapons.
And two-handed weapons. That's probably the
Yeah.
big ones. And we've discussed all of them and have some ideas of how they could work within our system and not be totally broken. Right?
I
Like
think
shields are tricky because
Yes.
it can end up being completely OP if you do it wrong.
We just have to
But-
figure out how to balance the shield.
Yeah, and it's completely OP if you do it wrong, but it's also it could be completely worthless if we do it wrong.
Right.
Because it's the kind of thing where if we try to like, oh, maybe it's not very durable, and so it breaks every once in a while, and so it's like, that's
Yeah.
doesn't
How
feel
good does
great.
that feel?
Yeah, does that feel good enough?
Right. Yeah.
What advantage does that really give me? I'll just
Yep.
I'll take a weapon instead.
Mm-hmm.
I think two-handed weapons is the one we've probably prototyped and played around with the most.
yeah.
But we just need more time to actually
Yep.
get it there so that A, it feels right, and B, balance-wise, it actually has a place in the ecosystem we've built so far.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, you guys touched on a lot. Yeah, Sigil Gaming asked, speaking of dropping his sword, any chance at being able to throw the sword for a short distance before poofing?
We've talked about like of their supers that we've talked about where it's like
We have some.
Throwing daggers are
Yep.
that's still on my wish list.
Yep.
yeah
Of some kind.
making throwing
We
feel
prototyped
good
some of that.
is rough.
Yeah, and it takes work, right?
Yeah.
And it was another one of those things that we were like, do we want to jump in this well now? You know, like 'cause we might not come out. It's going to take a while. Right?
Well, and now that we're
But-
out, it's a question of
Yeah.
how do you make that work with these rules that we've now established?
Yeah,
Right.
and
We
I
have to
think
make
Like,
it fit.
where is it okay to
Right.
break those rules?
yeah, and I think luckily with the trait system, like I could easily see a trait that's like, oh, this weapon can be thrown if unsummoned with force.
Right.
And so it's the kind of thing where you do the unsummoning action, and
Right,
then it
and
goes.
Yeah, has a
Right.
longer timer before it dissolves or something
Yeah.
like that.
So like again, we're not doing that, but it's the kind of thing where I could
Yeah,
like there are places where we could slot that kind of stuff. in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Let's see, let me get some more weapon stuff. This is Monogon, another one of our active Discord members. Do the devs have an idea on how many weapons they want to implement in the game?
As many as we can.
How many years are you guys going to be supporting us?
Yeah.
We can keep
No.
going.
Yeah, we can keep going. I think the
Yeah.
thing we wanted to do first was, I think the Katars were the example of the first one where we had kind of two of the similar model,
Yeah.
where they kind of were reskinned and then they have unique stats, but they're kind of the same base.
Right.
But I think with this first offering, we wanted to make sure that the weapons felt distinct.
Right.
And so the question is like, all right, do we keep making new unique weapons for each thing, or do we find ways to add additional variants of the existing set? Like, is there a blue arming sword?
Yeah.
That is.
Do you remember
the
how many we
arming
cut?
sword? A lot.
I mean, there was a.
I mean, I think there's like.
I mean, in concept.
Yeah, in concept,
in concept, we probably, in terms of just visuals, right? Because we'd have a rough idea of like this is sort of the rough place that this would fit into the lineup of things. No talk of traits or anything at that point in time.
Yep.
It was just like,
just
what fantasy does each
feel,
one of these
fantasy,
fulfill?
size, yeah.
And for every weapon that we have in the game right now, there was
5 versions of those.
no. I mean, early on, we would do a blue
So
sky
many.
phase first. There'd
Yeah.
probably be like 12
Yeah.
weapons in a lineup, and we kind of pick 3, and then
Yeah.
kind of distill down from there, and eventually pick 1.
Yeah.
But in terms of like fully, finally concepted stuff, yeah, there's probably like 4 times
Yeah.
as much stuff as
Yeah.
what we actually ended up doing.
Right.
A lot of them were similar to each other, and so we ended up picking the one that was going to make the most sense for the gameplay.
Right.
Yeah, and I think with adding new weapons to the game, I think the thing we want to make sure is that kind of what I was saying earlier of like making sure that they feel mechanically distinct,
Right.
and that each has a fantasy that's clearly realized and
Yeah.
can be understood.
Right.
Yeah.
And
how,
also-
many, how many can we do well?
Exactly,
It's like
yeah.
we obviously can't do 40 well.
Yeah, we could make
Let's
we could make
cut it down
60
to-
daggers, but they all feel the same.
They all
and
feel the
at
same.
what
So
point-
that's like we went for quality.
And I imagine, you can probably speak to that more than I can, but the more we add, the more difficult balance is
totally,
going
yeah.
to get, right? There's just, more things to push against every time we add something into that.
Totally, and I think we have a lot of fertile ground in terms of ways we could differentiate the weapons. It's the size, the shape, the weight, the health damage, the guard damage, the innate traits, the player bonuses that the weapons give. So again, I think we have lots of good ways to create a new weapon, but again, it's kind of the, does it feel good? Does it feel different enough? Does this invalidate a different weapon we've already made?
Right.
Is this just a worse version of the arming sword or something? Yeah.
But don't take it the wrong way. The weapons is one of the easiest ways for us to add a new feel to the game, like a new way to play, right? Like you get now there's this new tier of weapons. Now you can jump back in and do the same thing. So yes, we have a lot of weapons in mind.
Yeah, and I mean,
There's a lot.
There are a lot of weapon concepts. There's a lot, and even like we're the previous question of ranged weapons, shields, two-handed weapons, like those kind of we have the whole offhand armament thing. That's like we could have all sorts of goofy. Like we would keep joking about the skull that shoots a fireball.
Didn't we send out a survey to the entire studio? Like a chart or a sheet or something, and we got all sorts of crazy weapons.
Yeah, that's right. That was early.
That was pretty funny. We got some crazy stuff in there. Yeah,
there's some crazy people here. So.
Yeah. We got shotguns.
We have art half built for 3 heavy weapons that we actually ended up cutting from the initial release because we. Initially, we were like, yep, they're going to be crazy heavy, and they'll just be almost a little goofy, right, in terms of how heavy they are, because we don't have two-handed weapon support in there, and we got it in there, and it
didn't
was
feel right,
it broke that rule of do you feel like a badass, right, right out of the gate, and when you're kind of dragging this huge berserk sword behind you and really can't ever swing it well, it doesn't meet that mark.
I can't be Cloud Strife because I can't carry the sword and just kind of.
It's like really weak Cloud Strife.
Yeah.
You're like, I got. You can never.
Now, 2 of those weapons are technically in the game right now, just not playable.
Ooh.
Your move, data miners.
Balls in your court.
They're visually there.
Okay, yeah. I
gotcha.
see. Okay, I know what you're getting at now.
One of them's stuck in one of the levels, and the other one's
Just somewhere.
Yeah, it's wielded by an enemy.
Yeah, it actually is an environment though.
Yeah, but there are extras lying around.
Yep.
Oh, that's funny.
You can find them.
Just out of reach.
Just look.
If only you had that telekinesis.
Look what,
There you go. Let's see. So to wrap up the weapon conversation, Monagun asks, are there any weapons that are absolute no-nos?
I mean,
absolute's a strong word.
Absolute's a strong word.
well, yeah.
That's never going to happen.
For legal reasons.
Yeah, that one's never going to happen.
A phaser from Star Trek.
Yes, true. Licensed weapons.
Licensed weapons
are out for sure.
So I mean, besides the licensing issues,
I don't know if I don't know if guns is ever going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I think some sort of ranged weapon, maybe a crossbow, but I don't know.
Yeah, right. But we have to feel that out, right? So it's hard to say absolutely not, right? Because if we
I think
figure out a way to make it feel right.
If it keeps the goal of making you feel like a sword god, right?
Yeah.
And feels like it fits within the world, then I would say at that point it's bound by our ability to,
fulfill
implement
that,
it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can think of weapons that aren't necessarily not no-nos, but really hard.
Yeah.
I don't know, nunchucks or whip.
Yeah. Whip
hard. If I want to
really
put up my
hard.
Simon Belmont fantasy.
Yeah, right. That'd be really hard.
Gosh, nunchucks and an axe that would be pretty sweet.
Nunchucks would be sweet.
No, I mean that'd be awesome.
I guess you could one-hand them.
I guess you could, yeah.
But again,
and then just end it.
But it's the kind of thing where the kind of thing where it's okay, how do I make flipping the nunchucks feel cool without just being this weird?
Well, it's all the different modes of how you use those things. I know that other games have obviously they've explored this stuff. But this is the kind of stuff this is not a sim. We're not trying to make a physics sim. We're trying to make you if we're gonna give you nunchucks, you better be able to beat this knight with it. Otherwise, I could spin it, but it sucks as a weapon.
Right, that doesn't make sense.
No.
Yeah.
So fidget spinners are out.
Fidget spinning shurikens.
There you go. Now you're talking.
Yes, if you could
Spin
throw
them,
sure.
and then
You spin them, and that charges them up. But
That's
infuse
interesting.
the Aether
Right.
with the fidget spinner, and then you throw it. But yeah, I guess, again, short answer is I don't think there's any weapons that are absolute no-nos except for licensed stuff.
Yeah.
But again, I think we're being very choosy about which
Yeah.
we're chasing down.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So really quick and impatient, this was a good idea. They would like to know the Discord names from right to left.
Oh.
I thought
Yeah.
too late about it.
Yeah, so did I. So did I.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
right to
Oh,
left.
that's you.
Yeah, so
Stage right.
Stage right, yeah.
Nailed it. I've done drama. Yeah, all right.
the thespian over here.
So yeah, again, this is Dave, the project director. My handle on Discord is Chupa Dupa.
Chupa Dupa. Kwame, VFX artist. I'm Akimba.
Justin, the art director, and I'm Post Argus.
Dwayne, marketing team, Dwayne W. Very easy.
I think there was a point where I had Dave in parentheses in there, and then I took it off. But I might put it back on just to like remind people. But whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They know who you are now.
Yeah, no.
They know
It's too
now,
late.
so yeah.
It's over. It's over.
It's over. Yeah.
You can't hide it.
Let's see. So you mentioned something about Aether, about the
fidget spinners.
The Aether infused fidget spinners. So, sticking with impatient, are there different kinds of Aether, good or bad? And in a sense, there's the regular Aether and the wild Aether, but I guess you can.
Yeah, I
kind
mean,
of-
really, there are kind of two types of Aether in this world. There's the kind of corrupt Aether that you can
Right.
see in the environment. When you're in the Shattered Woods, you see it growing. It's the stuff that's corrupting the enemies. And you absorb that power into yourself each time you walk up to the bloom. You then take that corrupt Aether back to the Rune Forge, in which Agatha kind of purifies it and is able to use that as your currency to make new weapons and upgrade them. So yeah, there's a refined Aether, and then there's kind of a corrupt, polluted Aether.
Well,
I guess there's a third type too.
well, there's I would say there's two types of Aether that's out there in the wild. Right?
Sure.
There's sort of the blue-green, whitish glowing sort
That's like
of
the
stuff.
wild Aether.
That's
Natural.
sort of been amplified.
Yeah.
It's naturally occurring, but it's kind of been amplified by the events of the
Calamity.
calamity. Thank you. But then there's the stuff that is explicitly corrupted. Right?
Yeah.
That has more to do with the activities of
The Aether Horror.
The Aether Horror, right?
Yeah.
Where he's been building these blooms. There you can see enemies that are corrupted with that same color of Aether, and yeah.
Yeah.
Either way,
You gotta get it.
you're taking that stuff and you got to get back to get refined
Yeah.
before it's usable.
Can I like to think that the different powers of I want to go into the elements here.
All right, sure.
Really
Let's
where I wanna go.
do it.
Do it.
Really where I want to go.
Give
Come on,
some
Kwame.
context about
You
how
know my blessing.
give some context about how you
We arrived at
developed
the super-
those.
Yeah. So if you guys look at the each super on the different weapons, they kind of fit into what we kind of think of as elements, right? They're not necessarily elements that you see in most games, or they're not natural elements. They're not fire, earth, wind, water, but they are kind of etheric elements. They're ether-based magical elements that are in these weapons that were worked on by Rokar before all
Almost
this
like
happened.
elemental like schools of
Kind of like schools, right? So they're not explicitly listed in the game, but if you pay attention to the colors and the feel of what the powers do, and I'm sure the players that you guys that have played a lot can already start to put them together. You can kind of see that they're kind of split, right? So we have, for example, Stasis Strike and Void Trap are both void, right? They're both purpley, they're red, they trap things, right? That's kind of one school. Concussive Blast is yellow. We call that Force. That's kind of like the Force school, right? It pushes things.
Not the Force.
Not
TM.
the Force.
Yeah.
But
that is very different.
Force. Yeah.
Quite different.
Yeah.
Force. We have Soulburn, right? Soul is that kind of almost like hot, right? It's like pink and purpley, and you kind of see it in the hub with like at the forge, right? It's
some
that
hints
same
of cyan.
it's tealish, right? That's a school. Now again, we don't have so many elements or so many powers that you can see this, repeated,
Yeah.
but these are planned. Like I took a lot of time, Justin and I, actually everybody we all contributed.
It was a lot.
It was a lot of work, but we really scoped out all these elements and tried to make sure that we can make schools, make visual categories for them so that you could actually perceive what these things were. But I mean, obviously, it helps to actually put them in the game eventually, like the words. But we want to be able to build up on that.
Sure.
Yeah, and it gives us the the consistency and we know we have an idea of what each thing kind of slots into and how they work, and so now we can, when we want to tell that story, we can tell it coherently.
Right. Enhanced strikes, shard storm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sort of like shard Aether based weapons.
Yep.
It's kind of the almost wild Aether.
Yeah.
Kind of unleashed.
Yeah.
Yep. So those are I consider those kind of a schools of magic and runic kind of abilities that are tied to Aether.
But there's a fifth element.
There is a fifth. There's a fifth element, and
It's love.
It's
It's Guardian.
It's Guardian, yeah. And that one is tied to the sword that you start with. That is the arming sword, and that gives you bulwark. That's the shield. This is the most Rokarian.
Yeah, it's kind of the most manufactured.
The most manufactured. It's made specifically for like the soldiers to use it as shields, right? So it's the least wild. But it's the most almost like military, right? It's the thing that they use more often. It's the army. So that is a little bluer, right? It has more sigil base. You can see if you pay attention to the peripheral when you actually use that, you could see the detail in that. Right. So that is actually there, and that was something that would be repeated, as we go. But that's kind of the fifth sphere of magic there.
Now, in the long run, we may end up changing the color of that a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
May push it more towards purple or something like that.
Sure.
Just to make it easier to see.
Because, had not decided on premonition colors
or
blocking indicator colors when we started things out.
Well, I think, we had ideas of what's like, that's probably good enough. It's like, we need to push this more white, more blue. Yeah. It's like, oh god, now it's just the same color. And honestly, the early versions of the Aether Horde had the same problem.
Yep.
Yes. That Aether Horde used to be hot blue.
Used to be much bluer.
And you couldn't see anything.
Right, because there were not two types of wild Aether at that point.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when we discovered, you cannot see blocks against this guy. That's when we shifted his colors and then retconned that into the environments in different ways.
Yeah, it's great too because the Aether Horde's color has the more corrupt Aether in it, the red, but it also has the kind of same color palette as Void.
Yeah.
And so, maybe there's a relationship.
Yep. There's a lot of good stuff in there like that. And so the other thing that, Justin touched on a really good point, being able to tell kind of what these things are is hard because we've made these up. These are fantasy elements, So if I throw an ice sphere at you, what ice feels like. It's kind of crackly and it has ice dust and stuff like that comes off of it. So a lot of the art that we made in the game now, the elements of those spells and those effects are kind of the definition of how these things feel, right? So definitely try to pay attention to that and read into it next time you use all your supers, and you'll see it on the weapons too. So
yeah. There's that, and the little icons down for the supers themselves.
Yep. That's all Aether, baby.
All Aether.
Hot cup of Aether.
That's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Aether.
You had to get it right. Aether.
Let's see.
Aether, or never mind. That's the next question.
Yeah.
Next question.
Okay.
Save me, Dwayne.
So, I got you, Dave. Hey, is Agatha? This is from Monogon. Is Agatha the last Runesmith? Are there parts? So I'll ask multiple of the Runesmith because there are a couple.
Yeah.
Is Agatha the last Runesmith? Are there parts of the lore that are decided yet hidden? And then along with the Rune Forge, which Agatha's HQ, are we eventually going to discover another Rune Forge, but possibly rescuing another Runesmith along with all the juicy weapons it holds?
Man, I don't want to spoil anything, but as far as we know, Agatha is the last Runesmith. That does not but all we know is this is our base of operations. She's the one that revived us. And I mean, if you idle in the hub for like 10 minutes, I think she'll have some kind of random idle banter, and then you'll hear her musing about like, we can't be the last ones. Like there has to be others out there.
Yeah. She believes she doesn't know.
She doesn't know. She believes that she's
ones.
the last one. Mm-hmm. That being said, I mean, we'll hopefully find out something. And I mean, there's definitely aspects of the lore that have been decided, but we have not shared. So it's the kind of thing where we want to find the right ways to tell those parts of the story without just, I don't know, dumping a novel in virtual reality. Mm-hmm. It's like Agatha's like, welcome, hero, and then gives you a book that you have to...
here's volumes 1 through 7.
Yeah, that's right. So, Rokar 101, start.
The Rune Forge, again, without spoiling anything, for people who have played through the game, you'll encounter another Rune Forge.
Yeah, that's fair.
In some capacity. Mm-hmm. Right.
So yeah, we try to do some environmental storytelling there, but Allie's losing her mind.
Just look around the environments and see if something looks like the Rune Forge.
But yeah, so really, again, I don't want to get too into spoilers, but yes, we have talked about specifics of the world and story that we want to tell, but I'm not told yet. Cool. And again, kind of going back to our discussion about the elements, it's like, yeah, we have all these on paper, and we've talked about what the different schools of magic are, but we don't want to hit you over the head with it and kind of drown out the important stuff, which is you hitting dudes with swords.
Yeah, we have to find a natural way for it to fit in the gameplay structure that we've built. Right? Yeah. It can't be something that interrupts that, and then, like you said, just buries you and...
Sweet lore.
Yeah, it's gonna have to be opt-in in some way.
That sweet lore, though.
Yeah. Lord of lore.
Yeah. Again, will we ever get a chance to see what's behind the closed-off area in the Rune Forge and explore it more?
I'm assuming they're talking about the collapsed area.
Rubble, yeah.
Behind the training.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
There you go. Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly additional features and things like that we've talked about that would be great to throw into the game, and we will need room to expand into those things.
Yeah, we're going to need a bigger forge.
And and the story definitely is right now that we are fixing it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
that's true.
With each boss you defeat, you are reclaiming lost knowledge of these different weapons. Agatha's able to create them for you and use the Aether you've found to do awesome things, so it stands to reason that she can repair more of the forge.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good. Kima asks, what are the devs' thoughts on things like phantom sense that some users get with this game?
Phantom sense. I'm going to assume, so my interpretation of phantom sense is like actually having premonitions of what's about to happen next. Maybe.
Yeah, it sounds like it's like an intuition that you.
Yeah. If you're here, Kima, please elaborate.
Yeah,
I love the
yeah.
question.
Yeah. Is it? I think I get. Yeah, it sounds like basically what you're playing because you've got so good at playing the game and used to it reacting to it. You start to react to it before you need to react to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like if I'm playing Rock Band or something, an expert, like I have a Even if I haven't played the song before, I've played enough music where I can feel like a pattern is coming.
Right. Mm-hmm. To me, if that is what he means,
right,
then that is, I think, inherently part of the challenge of the game of getting really good, mastering the game. Right. It's because you get to a point where your skill gets up there, but you have to kind of almost slow down a little bit to actually react correctly. I find I have this problem with the dodges. For me,
gotcha.
Right?
Yeah,
I know it's coming. I know how I want to react, but I have to. If I do it too fast,
you're preempting it too
right.
quickly.
Then I and usually at that point, one, I get hit. Two, I'm completely off now. Right? I've got hit, and now I can't do the thing I was going to do, and now the captain's going to slam me.
He's going to hit you again.
So everything's off. So kind of finding that rhythm and sticking to it, and then adapting to it as the difficulty gets higher and everything gets faster.
And it's enemy based too.
Yeah.
I think some of the hardest fights are actually when you have empowered knights and regular knights mixed up both in your face at the same time.
And the rhythms are different.
And the premonitions will come at slightly different rates. And so I find that to be one of the trickier moments in combat. Swapping between those.
He elaborated. Phantom sense is basically feeling what you'd feel if you were there. Like a shield flinging from a dead enemy into your chest.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha, okay. So it's like, oh god, he's actually swinging the sword at me.
Right.
And now I'm going to be pierced by the sword. I know, so much of what we did early on was kind of like, because VR gives you such a sense of presence, it's like, in what ways can we, for lack of better words, invade your personal space?
Right.
It's like, you like, my favorite thing when we're going to shows and stuff, like showing off the game, is like people that have never been in VR before.
Yeah.
That first husk in darkness jumps at you, and they're like, oh, damn!
Yeah.
There's a man fighting me.
Yeah.
And like, we are triggering that fight or flight response.
Right.
And so, well, it's not exactly the same as like, oh man, he swung the sword, and I feel like the sword might. I would have just had that moment like, oh god, the sword went through me. Yeah. But it's definitely, I don't know. I think there's some truth to that because I think it again, like the sense of presence is so real.
Yeah, I want to say something like we try to make you feel, we try to make you feel, I guess, comfortable because you are. By building you up, you're this powerful rune knight, you're champion. You know what I mean? Like we try to make you feel like it's okay if something like that happens, right? Because like I've seen people react like that too at shows where they're like, "Oh no," and it's like, "Oh no, you're good, you're okay, you're a rune knight, you're good." Oh, okay, I can deal with that. Like that's gonna be different for everybody, and that is an inherent weirdness about VR. That like it's going to be everyone's boundaries are going to be different. Everyone's barriers, everyone's capabilities and handling that are going to be different.
Sensitivity.
You're so connected to it that it's harder to separate the player from the thing being controlled because it's a direct mapping.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, it is tough. Like if I've seen people flinch or dodge or jump out of the way of the first attack.
Yeah.
Very first attack. And I think the speed that, the pacing of the tutorial is there so that you can at least come down off that high, right? That high is going to hit you and you're like, ah! And then like the pace of that intro is just so kind of slow and comfortable so that you can at least just start to have that feeling where you're just like, okay, I'm just going to stand here. Let's see what happens. Like, oh, okay. That's what happens. Like I'm not going to flinch this time. Right. That's just something that like it feels like you just have to work through. I think it is a tough one.
In terms of question. If part of the question is about are there things we could do to make it feel like your body is being impacted more than it currently is, right? It's tricky because you never look down.
Short of the intro where you like, oh, cool, I've got a body.
I've got a body, right.
And like maybe if you're out of combat, you might do that, but once you're in combat, you're so absolutely focused on
tunnel
things
vision
right in front of you, or at least right at eye level, that we've talked about like different reactions and magic casting from your body, and like in a lot of cases it just didn't end up being worth it because you never see it. You never see it going on. One of the main ways that we have to impact you, we can do like hit flashes, tiny imperceptible bits of like time slow kind of things.
Little like a very subtle screen shake.
Yeah, tiny screen shakes, and then we can do the thing where we flash up a big, essentially a card that's bound to your face that shows you you've taken damage, either from a strike or from a projectile or something like that, where we kind of fill your vision with it. So filling your vision, I think, is the closest we can come to affecting your body overall.
Yeah, but even still, like, to Kima's point, like, there are times where I'm fighting them, they're in that block state, they're blocking, and eventually they get fed up, and they hit me with a pommel, and I will flinch. I'm like, God damn, he knocked me back. So, like, there's just moments where you definitely lose yourself and forget that. It's like, oh man, that guy actually hit me. He's like, no, he didn't. Wait, he didn't. And then I just charge back in and hit him.
Don't do that.
Hey. But yeah, no, it's interesting. It's the kind. I think it definitely affects people differently.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's different. Yeah.
Good deal. Let's see. We'll do this one. Do you have an explanation for the Aether horror's strange biology?
He's from a different place. He's not from Rokar.
There we go.
Sorry, it doesn't really have a gender. It's a monster.
It.
But yeah, the Aether horror is not of the world that you are from.
Yes.
Good deal. Let's see. Get some more of these lore stuff. Lore questions out. Do we, Sigil Gaming, do we get a chance to see Rokar eventually? We made it into the industrial outskirts.
We talked about this a little bit at the top. I would love to get there. That's always been my dream of starting the outskirts, get into Rokar proper, and then who knows where you go from there.
Yeah.
But right now, this first campaign is the outskirts of Rokar. It is the forest.
Yeah, even today, we were talking on our way to coffee about, what would be like a really cool story arc that we could travel through. But at this point, we're
focused on that first campaign.
Using the first campaign to help us build up what the base game is, and build around that.
Yeah.
The hope is things go well enough that we can keep funding this and take it to all those places we want to go.
Yeah, I think that's if like the first part, what's available now is the mystery, right?
Right.
It's the what happened, and
right.
and Runesmith being like, thank the gods, we got to figure this out, right? So like we're seeing the result of this terrible thing, and the next step is going to the place where the thing happened. So like we have all sorts of like they just said, like that really is. If you think about it, like a little bit narratively, that is the next thing to figure out is what happened in the big place? Why did this happen?
Yeah.
Like it's we have tons of ideas for all that stuff. But
yeah.
And to your point, there's a question. Can we get a rough idea? This is Sigil Gaming again. Can we get a rough idea of what the calamity is, beside it being bad times? I guess not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
Bad times.
all we really know about the calamity is that it happened at some point in the past. It made Rokar look like the way it does now, which is a neon hellscape. And now there's Aether and Aether horrors everywhere and unraveled. And so it's probably something to do with Aether, but beyond that, we don't have any more specifics to share just yet.
There you go. And then to Adam, your question, I just want to make sure that I recognize that I see it. You say on our Reddit AMA, you said that we were eager to tell Rokar's story, but wanted to make sure the gameplay was good before going full lore. How close are we to finding out more about Rokar? What do you think?
We'll be talking some about that in 2020, hopefully, but nothing official yet to share.
Perfect.
I hope we're getting closer, but we can't. we still have some stuff we want to iron out.
Cool. Okay, so we have a lot of questions left, so I figure not that much time left. So let's do some rapid fire.
Sure.
Let's do it.
Sound good? All right, Monogon. Are there plans to add or revisit new element of gameplay for the future? I mean, like new way of pairing or new enemies, etc.
Yes.
Yeah, I would. Yes, we have ideas for different enemies. We have all sorts of cool stuff that we want to try.
There are even things that we cut before that we didn't get very far down developing that we thought were cool ideas. So yeah, we hope to bring some of those back. Maybe figure out how they can work. I mean, again, a lot of it is fitting it now that we know what the game actually is, fitting it into that. Yep. But yes, definitely.
Cool. Let's see, Croesus. Will there be more signed merch for challenges? Yes.
Thanks, Wayne.
You're welcome. Let's see. How cool would it be for you guys to? How cool would it be if you guys released official Rune Knight cosplay? That would be cool.
Very.
It would be even cooler
It's
if
a
you guys
dream.
made it yourself
It's a
and
dream.
attended conferences in full Rokari garb.
And told us that you were doing it and
Yes.
sent pictures.
Oh my God, please
and post it
cosplay.
in the Discord.
Yes.
That would be great.
You would make a personal dream of mine come true. Do it, please. I'd love it.
But I guess
That'd
that'd be
the
cool,
best.
yeah.
It would be the best.
Yeah, it might be all right.
Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, yeah, speaking of, how hyped are you for fan creations? Well, we haven't seen
Incredibly.
cosplay yet, so...
Super hype.
Oh my god.
The hypest.
I mean,
we were just talking about, we got our first fanfic in from
the fanfic.
Dr. Prospector.
Dr. Prospector, Cross is getting some fan art commissioned.
Yeah.
Talking about Aether bows. We're talking about some cool spellweavers.
Woo!
We
live for this.
We came up with this, like, this was our idea born out of nothing. Like, right, born out of just, like, us just came up with this. So for us to be able to put this forth to you guys, and you guys take it and understand it and love it and put your own energy, artistic energy into it, please, the best.
Oh, yeah.
Please keep doing it. We love it.
It's not just our baby made of swords and neon.
It's yours too now.
It's yours.
Yes, and we share it together, and it's the
baby.
best.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous baby, but look.
It's dangerous bait. It's a sharp
That's
bait.
why we all have to work together.
Sharp magical baits.
All right. Are there any non-weapon upgrades planned, like character updates?
We've been talking about that. I think the thing we wanted to figure out is the best way to represent that. And it's kind of like an interface question of like, oh, are these things you crush? Are they things you socket? Like, I think we got to a point where we're pretty happy with the weapon inspection and the way the traits work. I think it's just a question of like, oh, if we do something like player traits, for example, like how does that work? How do you actually assign those things? Do you have like a little the rack of player traits that you can equip?
But I know our design director Patrick Daggeron, for those who are on the Discord.
Now you can bug him.
Yeah. I know that he's been eager to find a way to get us to the point where we have another axis of customizability in terms of player traits or like
a class or something
right
like that.
that kind of thing to add as another multiplier on top of which two weapons you choose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but again, it's just finding the way to do it right.
Yep.
Okay. Is it possible that there will be an NPC to interact with in the future?
And maybe, and there are many possible futures.
If it makes sense, then it's worth it.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing is that, again, we've been so focused on the combat and making the combat feel as good as possible. Like, we don't have a merchant that you need to interact with. I think if there were other NPCs that could interact with you, that'd be great. I would love to hear more voices in this world of Rokar.
Yeah.
But
love the idea. Absolutely.
Yeah, just don't know what form it would take.
Cool.
Yeah.
Are there any scraped off ideas you guys can share with us? We kind of talked about that a lot already.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
hopefully,
my favorite that is the joke. The joke that keeps coming back is weapon pinning.
Weapon pinning.
Where you would actually stick the weapon into the tree and it would stay there,
Mm.
which is great until you realize you need that sword. So you accidentally put the weapon in there and it gets stuck.
Right. So part of the issue became, I stuck it in there. Now I can't fight.
Yes.
And then people felt really kind dumb because it's like, well, it's cool, but at the same time,
that paired with the telekinesis, you can stick in there and
pull
then
it
you
back
run
out.
away from the tree and then pull it out.
those are the combo. We talked about telekinesis earlier.
Yeah.
Weapon pinning was the other part of that.
And there's all sorts of other goofy crap that we end up having to cut.
Yep. I mean, we cut
things.
We cut elevation out of our game.
I mean, we
Just
to
simplify
really
it.
just simplify everything down and make it first of all achievable on our budget, and
understandable.
second of all just make it a very comfortable experience, but still feel awesome.
Yeah.
So.
let's see. Do you guys have any deadlines on when the game should be finished?
Nothing we can really announce yet. I mean, we'll be talking more next in 2020 about what our plans are, but nothing to share just quite yet.
And even that finished is a loose.
Yeah. Like I think it's
I think ideally we work on this
a while
for a long time.
It's a roguelike, so we want to keep adding
Multiple
things.
campaigns,
Yeah, we want it to live for a long time. So
yeah, I mean, one of the goals originally when we were coming up with the game idea was, hey, we want to make something scalable and expandable.
Right. Exactly.
And I think we've done a great job of building that foundation of like, yep, here are all the ways and different vectors it can grow now.
Right.
And there's even stuff that's like there are glaring empty sockets. It's like, oh, the story socket. Like I want to add more lore into the game in a way that can be told interestingly. We have ideas for like all sorts of stuff to expand this game, but yeah. So short answer, nothing yet. 2020.
There you go.
We'll talk more.
What are plans for 2020? We answered that question for you, Croesus. Let's see. Is there a way for us to buy any swag to help support the game? The aesthetic of the game is beautiful and would look awesome in clothing form, and we get to support you guys. So there there are planned. Wait for 2020.
2020.
2020.
Discussions are happening.
Discussions are happening. Things are in the works. What are some of the favorite things devs like to see from content creators? From Kima.
I mean,
Wow.
Role play it.
oh, dude,
Like
yeah.
go
Janet!
go over the top.
Please don't stand there like this. It does not make our game look exciting.
It also is very hard to beat doing that. But yeah, no, the more you get into it,
Yeah.
like the more excited we are, and I'm sure the rest of your viewers will be too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
For me, it's positive energy. It's just positive creative energy.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people that have
It's a
done that
hype,
already.
yeah.
Like fanfic, amazing. Any type of role playing that we've seen, the streams have been really exciting.
It's been fun.
I mean, that outward acting is one of the reasons, just one of them,
Right.
but one of the reasons why we have the big swings mechanic in the game, right? We want to encourage you to take
The bigger
big
actions,
dramatic
yeah.
actions, partially so that you look more awesome on stream doing those things, and you're not just standing up there doing the wee waggle.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
Trademark.
go ahead.
I was going to say, I like whenever content creators are in the Rune Forge and they're picking out the weapons and they're describing why they're doing it. So
Right,
they're
yeah.
talking about
Thought
their
process.
style and going into strategy. Well, this is how I'm going to approach the knight this time. This is how I'm approaching the captain, to try to get
Yes.
their commenters, the fans, that get to
Totally.
like do that. So-
build videos.
Yeah.
Weapon description videos. Anything. If you want to go into detail about the different levels of the weapon and why you like this level versus that level, like all of that stuff. If you is there to talk about, and we know we've heard it, we've read it, we've seen it.
We've
You guys,
seen it, yeah.
you guys get it and you love it. So like, yeah, the more you do, the more detailed stuff you do about that. We like reading how you perceive and how you interpret
totally,
the
yeah.
things that we've put in there, and how you build beyond, how you go way beyond what we even thought.
I mean, like,
Or you can just analyze what's there. Like,
Yeah.
One of my favorite things that I had seen, and I'll put in a plug-in for the wiki that a lot of our
Yes.
Discord
Yes.
members have been helping out with, is just awesome and incredible,
Yes,
and it's
great.
captured so much
Thank
information
you.
and detail. But there's a particular page in there, and forgive me for forgetting who put it together mostly, but it's basically a walkthrough of the first boss fight,
yeah.
right? And it was very cool to see which things, both in terms of the story of what's going on and the
Mechanically,
mechanics, read well and,
Yeah.
and carried through and were able to be discerned by the author, and which things kind of fell to the side, and that I mean, that's helped us with
Yeah.
understanding what's reading and what's not. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just easy to please, I guess, because just seeing goofy grins of people playing it for the first
Oh
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, just I guess
my
it's the
goodness.
hype, but it's just the sheer delight of like, holy crap, I just hit that man with a sword. Or even like conventions again, where we're seeing people playing
Oh,
games.
the
like,
show
they
they
look,
give in the
they,
conferences
they
is the
look, they look
best.
at their body like, oh my god,
I have
I'm beautiful.
arms?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, and so it's the little moments like that I'm looking for. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's just those little glimmers of
Yeah.
It's
unadulterated
kind of like
delight.
the purity of that.
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
there's no pretense. There's
Right.
no, you're not
It's
putting
just,
on an
whoa!
act.
Yeah.
It's just this
Yeah.
pure, I don't know, joy.
Yeah.
Okay. Will we get a chance to fight a bear from Bull?
Well, you see, during the calamity, well, you're shitting. I don't know. I here's my question to you: is the bear upright or is it on all four legs?
Yeah.
Does the bear have weapons? Is this a golden compass situation where the
yeah.
bears talk? I want to know what you think the bears in this world do.
Was this like a battle bear?
Yeah, like, is
that
this-
like became affected?
Yeah, maybe the Rokar
now-
rode the bears into battle.
Yeah, were they like
Yeah.
mounted? Yeah,
Yeah.
give us some.
Yeah, I need
Yeah.
more.
Give
I need
us
more
some-
context.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
maybe
Bull, you
we'll
come
see
back
the
to
bear.
us
You
with
come
those
back to
answers.
us.
Yeah.
Does the bear have a weapon?
Oh, yeah. Does it like it is in its mouth?
Yeah.
Like
Does
I
it
mean,
roar
the bear
out?
is the weapon.
The bear is
I,
the weapon.
I mean, it has,
The bear
it has
is the weapon.
claws.
The bear can
but
have
I'm
a
just
weapon.
saying. I mean, there's that boss in Dark Souls. It's a dog with
yeah,
a giant sword.
Yeah, right.
Why not a bear
Or
with a
maybe
giant
you could
hammer?
summon, so instead of having a
Ooh.
weapon, you could summon the bear.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
the bear attacks the
Yeah,
knife.
maybe it summons arms. and then you wrestle with it. I don't know.
Or how about this?
There are many more questions and answers,
Yes.
I guess.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, probably no.
Anyway,
Yes. To sum it up, 2030.
2030, year the bear.
You're the bear. All right. Will there be foxes in the game? From Kima.
Kima.
Same answer.
Same answer.
2030.
I need more info. 2030.
Let's see.
I see you, Kima.
The tier 3 boss in Nightmare was such a difficulty jump when he gets enraged. Are there plans on making harder modes that make enemies have more combos of that intensity?
We have definitely talked about it. We want to figure it. I think the kind of like what we did when we first launched the game in early access. We only had the one difficulty. We want to kind of establish that baseline, and so with that, we were able to kind of, all right, how do we make it easier? How do we make it harder? And then we had a Nightmare, and so now with Nightmare, we only have one Nightmare. But now once we see people are able to beat Nightmare, what the kind of the rough edges are is like, all right, how do we make it even more insane but still doable? So I think we're definitely talking about how to best do that. So
Right, and the answer is not always just make it faster.
Yeah.
You hit a threshold where it stops being
readable,
fun, or even feel like
fair.
It starts feeling like it's breaking its own rules. So finding ways to make that feel even harder, but still feel good. I think is the challenge.
I think, and like, I mean, to the question asker's point, like, having enemies perform longer strings is definitely one of those ways where, I mean, one of the ways you get good at this game is you kind of learn the patterns, and so as enemies start breaking those patterns or introduce new patterns, that's where, like, oh god, I'm suddenly a babe in the woods again. I don't know what I'm doing.
I will say, in terms of breaking those patterns, one of the best things that I saw in one of the betas, I don't know if it went live or if we just tested it here, was jumping into it was in one of the Aether horror fights, and it was one of the phases where there's a bunch of mobs down on the ground, and you're fighting those. And the Aether horror got impatient at some point and jumped in and started wrecking house while you were still fighting those guys.
It was not. It was not
intended.
Oh wow!
But it sure broke some rules.
But yeah, I mean, some of the ways we've joked about making the game harder is like, right, there are rules of engagement for enemies, and so it's like, what if everyone just doesn't wait their turn? Like everyone's just going for it.
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like? And I'm sure it's a literal nightmare, but is that a game that's fun?
Broken, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Scale models for figurines. 1, 3D printing files of weapons or characters. So probably not 3D file printing of weapons or characters. Yeah, sorry, Dave. Concept art on disc plates, a brand of prints on steel. So we've been just recently talking about some of that, like what type of merch can we make available. Nothing solid yet. We'll see what 2020 looks like for that.
If you're not already in the Discord, that is a great place to leave us feedback on.
Excellent. Those are all great
even
ideas.
stuff outside of the game like that.
Yep.
We'd love to hear about it.
Yep.
Throw pillows.
Throw plush toys.
Yeah.
Cozying up my little husk.
Tea cozy.
Tea cozy.
Bearskin rugs, just to tease.
Ooh.
There you go.
Oh snap!
That's an eighth
That was
With the Aether.
that was mean.
When does the original soundtrack become available for purchase? We are still working on how we're making the original soundtrack available. We'll have news in early 2020 for you guys about that.
We're currently mastering it and making sure it sounds as awesome as it can.
Yeah, we're working on a final mix right now. Even what's in game right now was sort of a temporary mix that's been out there. So we're making it sound even more polished up and clear, and
eager to get that to you
and
guys.
then getting a mastering both for in game and out of game in some capacity.
Yeah.
Let's see. Little Wise Owl, at what point will we have more rewards every round? 3 per round is good for now, but once we have more options, will it scale up?
That's an interesting question. I think if we get to that saturation of different types of rewards, I don't see why we couldn't. But right now the balance for to kind of pick one of three felt right.
Yeah, cool. Gumball's Game Room, what VR games that contain swordplay have the devs used for reference?
All of them.
All of them.
Yeah, as many as we can.
Every single one.
Cool.
Gorn, Blade and Sorcery,
Yep.
Carnage Chronicles,
I mean, in death.
Jedi challenges.
In Death, Jedi Challenges.
Yeah, I mean, in death isn't really sword fighting, but
No, but
still.
there was a kind of a similarity in the platform.
combat.
Any that we could play.
I mean, even Beat Saber.
Beat Saber, right?
Like-
Anything.
Yeah.
Anything we could play. Absolutely.
All right. The last question. We did it.
my God.
Last one from Philip. What, and maybe just one sentence or one thought per person. What are the biggest development lessons you've learned from Until You Fall that you expect to take forward into future VR projects? Or I would also add this, what problems did you guys solve in Until You Fall that you would like to continue to put more of that into the game in its future development? And we could take a thought and we'll end it with that.
I've got one.
Go.
Immediately
I gotta
thought.
think.
So I think for me, the biggest thing that was apparent that constantly had to be solved is figuring out what the player will look at and when and how and where to focus the energy on making those experiences, those events, right? So I know that's a kind of a weird, wobbly answer, but it's basically we don't have cutscenes in VR. There's no cutscenes, right? So I can't walk your knight up to the Aether Bloom at the end of each stage and play a cutscene and make sure you look at it. And then when you crush something, I can't animate your hand right in front of your face. So there was a lot of experimentation that had to be done in me actually making those VFX to figure out how to get you to see it, to notice that something was happening, or to make you want to look at it. So those are things that at first you just assume, right? Like, of course they'll look. You'll see it. I'll make it nice and juicy, right? But but then you have to see how people actually play, and then you kind of have to react to that. So that is definitely something that I will take forward, from now on. And it was something that was challenging to solve in this. So
Yeah. I think mine's this is kind of a two-fold thing. I think the first part was this is something that we always do, and this is the thing we always try to encourage with all our projects. But really, for this game, this is the first time where player fantasy has been so important in defining what feature set we're really going for. At least in my history of different projects I've worked on, we really defined no, you are a badass. You were not a zero to hero. You were hero to God, and that was all right. That was a very strong core pillar of this experience, and everything kind of rallied around that. And related to that, based on that, really determined what features we cut. And we talked a lot about features that we had to kind of leave by the wayside because it didn't 100% support that core fantasy. And so really this is something that will be taken forward into other projects and other VR or not even non-VR projects, is using that kind of just kind of not brutalism, but it's kind of yep, no, it's is it up to mustard? It's no, it's not. It's getting cut. And so really it's about paring it down to the smallest set of interactions that you can to make them the best that you can, so they best support your fantasy.
Dave came very close to what I was going to say, which is get to the distillation fast. We went through a lot of iterations of very, very different games of what this could potentially be. The combat was always roughly the same thing, but what is the wrapper for this game? Even before we settled on it being a roguelite, and that applies to everything. It applies to the design of the game, but also the art and whatnot. And so there's the characters in the game are actually they existed pretty much before anything else, because they kind of came from a previous version of this potential world. And I think we did a good job kind of refitting them and retheming them a bit to kind of work into this space, and a lot of the unique aspects of them carried into this story. But to be able to build that holistic, intact feeling world, I would like to get to that distillation faster.
Yeah.
Right. Both in terms of design and know really what is this
holistic vision.
Yeah. What is this world about? So then we can be building out from there rather than trying to cobble pieces together.
I mean, again, I feel like we've talked about this before, but the moment that really kind of crystallized everything for us is like, yep, all right. The core pillar, you're a badass. How do we make you feel badass? I don't know. You hit dudes with swords. Great. What makes you want to hit dudes with swords? I don't know. Music makes you feel violent. What music is that? And we kind of talk through music. It's like, oh, synthwave, cool. Oh, synthwave should have glowy stuff. And so it's kind of like, oh, we already have these kind of glowy enemies, and kind of already.
Let's push that further.
Yeah. And so it was this kind of thing where one thing pushed another thing, and it all kind of like glommed together and made it like kind of, I don't know, pulled out the strengths of each other element.
Yep.
Cool. A lot of great questions, guys. Thank you so much for
awesome questions.
Yeah, for tuning in on the Discord and on the live chat. We've mentioned Discord throughout the conversation. Please, if you haven't joined our Discord yet, jump in the conversation. You can talk to a lot of these guys. They're pretty active on the server, and so are many of the people who have asked these fantastic questions. Also, subscribe to the channel. We do the Dinner with the Devs once a month. There are always different topics. January will be kind of like a mashup of things to look forward to in 2020, not just in Schell games, but the games industry in general. So that'll be a fun one. You can follow Until You Fall on Twitter, on Facebook. You could
Instagram.
In Instagram. You look at the wiki, untilyouFall.fandom.com, so you can take a look at that. And
Weekly challenges?
We do. Challenges are going to, the timing of the challenges are going to switch a little bit as we get into 2020, but we'll have more announcements about that. But a weekly challenge, or the end of the year challenge, will be announced tomorrow, and tomorrow, Thursday, for people who are going to watch the stream later. And it's exciting. We're excited for the challenge, and the reward for it is a fun one. Biggest reward to date. So hopefully we get some people really playing the game and entering the challenge. But thank you guys for watching, and we will see you guys next month or next decade.
Year. Yeah. Woo! 2020, baby.
2020. See you guys. Thanks.
Bye.